Okay, hello. I'm back again for my regular Monday long chat, which is usually around this time. Sometimes I will move it, but consistently I've been doing it pretty much at this time on Mondays until there's a holiday. But happy St. Patrick's Day. Um, yeah, and I'm back. Just basically talking about weddings. I did my sister's wedding and it was a destination wedding, right? And I pretty much planned most of it for her and with the help of my mom, but like a lot of coordination and setting up locations and stuff. Even though ours was definitely not what I would consider like a low budget wedding, I do have some things that I would do personally if I was looking to keep it very low budget. And hopefully those things will help you. uh, in the future. Because I know, like, I mean, the cost of everything is just getting outrageous, 100% outrageous. And, like, but people still want and people still deserve a wedding. And I feel like a lot of times people try and, like, convince others to just, like, not do it. They're like, oh, just don't do it. You'll save the money and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of, especially women, have spent the majority of their early lives sort of, I mean, I'm not saying like dreaming of like marriage. I think people like jump to that conclusion, but like dreaming of a wedding. Okay. There may be no groom in mind and no marriage in mind, but dreaming of like the dress and the cake and specifically those kinds of things. I don't think it's like a good idea to deprive like yourself if that's something you've always really wanted, because then a lot of people look back 30 years later and they're like, gosh, I really wish I had had that wedding. And some people do, they do like an anniversary or something. But you're older, you may already have kids, and then your kids are at your wedding, which is fine, but it's like the the time has passed, right? It's like you could throw yourself another prom, but it's not the prom that you would have had if you went to prom. You know what I mean? Which I was someone who I had finished high school and because I just left early, and I was in college, but I went back to my high school prom because my friends were still in school and they got me tickets because they're awesome. And I was able to go to my prom. And so like I can say like I did it, that's accomplished. That chapter is like, finished or whatever. And I don't feel like I missed out on something. I do wish I had gotten ready early enough to like go to their house beforehand because I'm always running late. But I don't think that would have happened like even if I was still in high school when I went to prom. Like different situation. But yeah, I do have some things to recommend. But I do these long chats. They're just like sort of a more casual thing. It's been like a pretty unpleasant, I don't want to say, I mean, I hate to say unpleasant. It's not that there weren't good things that happened, but it's just been a really rough month for me, which I talked about a lot in my previous chat. So if you want to know what went on, I have like my previous live stream is like vertical. And I talk about the family stuff that we've been going through, and I'm in rehearsals for a musical, and we're getting pretty close to the show. And that is like, yeah, kind of, I mean, like obviously I have to deal with the family things, and I'm also still trying to do the rehearsals. And like honestly, like they're, I mean, I don't want to say they don't care. Some of them care. Some of them absolutely care, and others are like, we don't care, just like be here. And it's like, well, thank you for that. Also, there are other people who don't show up, and why am I the one who gets punished even though I just told you like that it's not going well. Yeah, basically we lost someone who's like family to us, so that's like the long and short of it. But um yeah, so like that's what has been up this past month, so that's why like the video like subject is like a little different. So yeah, but actually the person like who was like our very close family friend, the last thing that we all did together, um because she was like out of state, they had moved out of state just for like a very short period of time, and the last thing that we all did together was her son's wedding. and they are from a culture that does the very long weddings. So it was 4 days. It was a 4 day wedding, and yeah, there was a lot to it. But I saw, and I mean, they'd done their daughters before too, but I think I hadn't done my sisters, so I didn't know. And I think it's weird once you like watch it having done it, like my perspective on it was completely different. Not that her 3 day wedding, we went to 3 days out of I think four, and then they did 3 more days in Texas. But yeah, so I guess technically it was like 6 or 7 days. But it's not that her 3 day wedding that I went to seemed simple, because it wasn't. But when you have to do the logistics yourself, it changes so much. It changes your perspective completely. So seeing her brothers, because he's like a little younger than us, seeing his like his wedding, it was interesting. So I think that in order to save money, I see like a lot of recommendations online. um and it's not that you can lie. I know you can't lie and be like, we're not doing a wedding, and then everybody shows up and the bride's in a white dress. Like, people are gonna know. But if you can purchase things that don't come through something that is specifically for weddings, you will save money immediately. So like, if you order, like down in the description, I have some random things. I just listed them from my one of my previous like wedding videos that I did with the thank you gifts. And if you order wedding gifts, right? Wedding favors, I guess they're called wedding favors, it's going to cost more. It's a wedding favor. And if you order something that is just, which is what my links are pretty much, just stuff, then they're not necessarily going to like know that that's what you're using it for, especially if it's not like a weddingy type thing. And so the price is going to be like less. With inflation, everything's high, sadly, but it's still going to be like less because there is a wedding markup. Like, it's not fake, it's real. So for like wedding favors and stuff like that, if you're looking to cut costs, first place you can cut. The guests don't really need it. For ours, it was a destination wedding, so we felt like we really wanted to provide as many thank yous as we could. But for like a local wedding, they don't need it. You could get like, a lot of people get like a pack of candy or whatever and just put them in the little baggies. The baggies at Hobby Lobby, which they're usually on sale when we go in, honestly, they're $3.99, but they're usually 50% off. And you can get all the little baggies. If you have 300 guests, you're going to have a problem everywhere. So another huge place to cut is the guest list. You don't need everybody there. You don't need people who you don't like. You don't need people who don't like you. You don't need them. They make for awkwardness and stuff. So everybody will enjoy it a lot more and get along a lot better if you can keep people around you that really support you and that you really love and all that. Because otherwise you're just paying for like extra stuff. Also, there's like a huge argument over like plus ones and stuff. I don't think it makes sense to have an extra 100 people, like I said, that you don't like, when the people that you do like and do love could all have a plus one. Like, let them have the option of having fun and spending time with other people that they like. Because if you're the bride, or I mean, even if you're the planner, but the bride is going to be tied up. She's going to have like 5 minutes with each guest, especially if it's a big wedding. And the person's just going to be sitting there awkwardly trying to make conversation with the other people at the table. And it helps if they have like a wingman or whatever, or a mom or a best friend or whoever they have. It helps the conversation flow when like the other one can like help pick up for them, and they don't just feel like they're sitting there alone. So cutting guest list is like a huge thing. But yeah, like what we get, like chocolates, mints. I like the ones in Hobby Lobby because they say Mr. and Mrs. And they actually matched our invitations. That was like, it looked so well thought out and well planned because they matched our invitations, but it didn't cost a lot. It was just, I mean, I don't want to say it was a coincidence. Like, obviously, whoever designs at Hobby Lobby thought of it, but everything had been marked down. So it ended up being like very inexpensive. Another recommendation, like, I think the biggest way that you could cut, like, florals are huge, right? and then food slash cake is huge. Those two things are huge. The dress is kind of up to you on how huge it is. But for us, like we had ours at the beach. We still paid for a florist, but we were in Vietnam, which is a cheaper country. The flowers were still quite expensive, and that's in that country. So God only knows what they would have cost in America. But yeah, I would say if you can have the, like if you're doing the ceremony, right? Most people, I mean, I don't want to say most people. Some people do the ceremony and the like dinner in the same spot. My cousin did hers, like it was all basically on one sort of like compound. The like they had the ceremony arch on one side and then like a sit down open space area that had been dressed up and had flowers hanging on the other for us to like eat dinner in. But you could walk between like all of it. It was sort of like a ranch, but like done up to be cuter. But if you can do a wedding like in a garden or something that already has flowers in it, then you only need your bouquet. And if you want to do the bouquets or like corsages for the guys, that will save you a lot of money. Now, gardens can be expensive to rent and stuff like that. So I do get it, but if you can find somewhere that's sort of like more, I don't want to say a public garden, but if you can arrange for something like that for the ceremony, then that's going to be less expensive because you don't have to pay for all the flowers. And I always recommend a facility that looks nicer than trying to make a facility that looks terrible look nice. You cannot make a high school multi-purpose room look great for less money. It's going to, in the end, cost you more because of all the crap you have to do to it to make it look kind of decent. Also, it's got that lovely high school smell that just kind of stays there and never goes away. The next thing I would recommend, which we didn't do, but I could see how, especially in Vietnam, we could have done it. And you don't want it to be too far from where you had the ceremony. But if you can find like a restaurant with a private room, if you try and close down the whole restaurant, which is why I say no, smaller numbers, right? Because the private rooms are usually not that large, but smaller numbers will help with this. A restaurant with a private room, that way you don't have to shut down the restaurant. But also, you don't want to be in the middle of a restaurant that's running because you've got like loud, noisy people and you're trying to do your toasts and you can't hear the toasts because you've got like a whole restaurant full of strangers. But if you could find one with like a private room, reserve the private room. Um, Deciding on whether you want people to just be able to order what they want or whether you're going to order like for everyone, that's up to you. You could check on costs, but because the restaurant isn't being used as the venue and you're just renting the private room, the reason I use this as an example is because we actually had, she's like a relative, I guess. She did a birthday party like this, and it was really nice. Wasn't that many, like a ton of people, obviously, but you know, she had a toast and she had a photographer. So, like, you know what I mean? It was a nice, like, way to do it and sort of similar to a wedding. And they expect it, you know, they do it for retirements, anniversaries, things like that. So, if you can also kind of finagle your way and do it for a wedding, then that isn't a bad idea. Now, I know that this is especially like good for people who have no interest in dancing and don't want a dance floor. If you're looking for a dance floor, then that could get a little complicated because something that didn't really occur to me until I was like really in the thick of it was that the dance floor aspect is hard. It's not that you can't just have like an open patch of space for people to dance in, but it really encourages people if there's like some sort of moody lighting. What I did, because we were in a private room, I'd have, it would take me way too long to explain like the setup that we had, but we were like in a hotel which has like a huge banquet hall, and then there's a private room off the banquet hall. Um, and I couldn't change the lighting, okay? I couldn't like turn down the lights. So we kept the bright lights up, obviously, through dinner. But then when the dancing started, I think I turned the lights off and turned on like the television. I put these like, I don't know, like on YouTube, there are just kind of like ambient videos where it was playing music and like had like hot air balloons or something. It was just like very mellow and cool. And it was nice to have in the background because it kind of helped set the mood. And then the DJ was playing his own music. So like that's what I'm saying about the private rooms is like, because for the reception you usually want some type of maybe like moody lighting, and then you also have to have somewhere for the DJ to set up and be able to like run the stuff. You just have to make sure to check with the restaurant to see if they can do that. I don't think it would be a problem, but it would come down to the space and the type of restaurant, how many guests, lots of like little factors. um so another place that I think that you could save is the wedding cake. I, it depends on how elaborate you want it. If you've got a very specific vision, you're going to need to go to a wedding company. If you don't really care about how it looks, but you want a cake and not cupcakes, um, I don't know if, like, honestly, they could be the same price. So don't quote me on this, but like quinceañeras, you might be able to like get a quinceañera cake and just say, like, I want it all white with like no colors on it. Um, and it's going to be like nice kind of wedding style, but not hopefully as expensive if you can go to like a cheaper quinceanera, you know, place or whatever. And then it would come down to you having someone designated to pick it up, and you cannot designate someone who's like really just strictly a guest to do stuff. You really do need a coordinator, planner, or whatever that you can trust, that's not, I would say, not even personally attached to you, because you don't want someone who will feel like bad about missing something if they have to like make changes, on the fly. Um, because the other person who's like a real guest is going to like just want to be back, just try and get back to the wedding. If you have someone like coordinating for you who's like more impartial, I think that helps, because like there are a lot of emotions involved when it's like family and stuff like that. Or if the place delivers, then you could just have them deliver it to the restaurant and the restaurant knows. Other fees to avoid. Now, with restaurants, you usually can't bring outside alcohol. So there are corkage fees. If they allow you to bring your own outside alcohol, which I would say probably don't, except for wine, or champagne. You might bring your own champagne or your own wine, but there could be a fee for bringing your own outside wine or champagne. Um, but corkage fees, the one that you can really avoid, I would say, is like the cake cutting fee. I mean, if you're like absolutely a butcher, then maybe don't. The good thing was the person my sister married was trained professionally as a chef. So first she was like starting to cut the cake, and then he was like, no, because she is a bit of a butcher. And boy, was that the most professionally sliced cake by the groom. Wonderful. And a lot of places charge for that. They charge for the cake slicing. And if you bring your own nice cake knife, then you can have the person just slice and dice, and like plate it very quickly and stuff. And it helps it, I think, if you're not trying to be like too, like most cakes look pretty good unless like literally it was made at home by someone. Like most people who make like professional level cakes, they look pretty good. So, I know that a lot of people who make wedding cakes are like, our cakes are special and they don't have any flaws. And it's like, I get that for a high-end wedding, great, but for someone who wants to save money, it's like, does it really matter if like the flowers aren't quite even? Not really. Everybody's going to eat it. So, and it will look okay in photos, it's not going to look like horrible. Beware of butter though, because ours was made out of butter and it was pretty warm in the room and it started to like lopsided tilt, even though it was a professionally made cake. So, that's something to be aware of. But those are, I think, the places that you could find the biggest deals. In terms of dresses, which I know are hard, if you don't mind a used dress, then you can get them online, probably like eBay or something. Be aware that you're not paying more for a used dress than you would find a new one. That's a problem. I have this problem with, I mean, anything used. You shouldn't be paying more for something used than it cost new if you're trying to save money. If you're not trying to save money, then it doesn't matter. But If you're trying to save money, then like don't do that. Dresses, you could try to make your own. The laces, the bodices, the zippers get really complicated. So if you're not someone who does that all the time, I wouldn't recommend it. Also, Joann's just went out of business. The fabric stores, they're just like, they're so quickly going out of business and dying, which is really sad. It makes it hard to find it. And like the laces that you find in like the more basic stores don't stretch. And, you know, a lot of times you'll want like the stretching lace. So here in California, you know, downtown LA, like pretty much everyone just says, just go to downtown LA, where it's just blocks and blocks and blocks of fabric. It's crappy to go down there and like find parking and walk. Ugh. Um, but we do have an endless amount of fabric. But if you're somewhere that doesn't have fabric, that could be hard. And when you order them online, you cannot be sure that they match. When you see them, you can hold them up next to each other and go, this one's gray and this one is yellow. But when you're ordering online, sometimes the lighting can be off. So just be careful with that. Um, but there are usually like cheaper shops. What you could do is buy a dress maybe that's like less expensive or more plain and try and add lace to it if you know someone who can like tack it on. Um, Dresses are hard. I'm not going to say they're not because it's also fit, right? Like if you can find something on the rack, then that's fine. But, you know, if you can't, if you are the type of person who wants or would like to have color on your wedding dress, then you probably can find one cheaper because it won't be touted necessarily as a wedding dress if it's got some color on it. So that's also something to keep in mind. But yeah, I know it's a big thing. Start planning. They all say start planning like a year out. It's true. Start planning at a year out, um, and start thinking about it and looking for venues. The faster that you pick a location and place, the faster you can start getting other things into position, right? So like you can't know like if you have like you have to decide, I think, what's more important to you, I guess, ceremony or reception. Do you want them in the same place? Are they happening in the same place? Do people have to travel between them? How far apart should they be? Because they really shouldn't be that far apart because your rental times could become a problem. If you've got one where like it takes you an extra 30 minutes than you thought to get there and your rental time's already started and maybe you need to be out by a certain time. Which is why, you know, like trying to avoid those kinds of things, um, in terms of like shutting down a restaurant or something like that, can be really important. But I would say the venue is really where you have to start because all the other things are predicted by that. Like where can you get the cake delivered to or whatever. Um, and you know, like for if you pick a restaurant, like no, the place settings will just be like plain place settings. You could maybe have someone bring in their car, like if it's like one of those long rectangular tables, which is something to think about. Like if you're doing the long rectangular table, then you can bring one long rectangular centerpiece that's maybe like a few feet long or something and just like plop it in the center of the table. Um, if you want, if you're ending up with round tables, then you know, like, okay, we're going to need rounder centerpieces or whatever, if you want centerpieces and you think they matter. But all of those kinds of things, uh, I think a lot of people can keep it simpler if they just sort of think of it as like a dinner, like a very fancy dinner. And that's where most of your money will go. Cause like, I can't tell you that you'll be able to save money on the dinner because you might not be able to. Dinner's expensive, you know, and if you go to a nice restaurant, like it's terrible because you can get a nice meal at a nice restaurant for about $20 to $25. But like when you start setting it up for this type of event, it's probably going to cost you $50 a plate, um, which is too bad. Because you know, which is why I say, like, maybe if you trust your family and you don't think that they will take advantage of you, you could maybe just have them order whatever they want. You know what I mean? And probably they're going to order something that's like $20 to $25, as long as you don't have like an uncle that thinks that he should order, you know, the specialty rarefied veal with, you know, the best wine in the restaurant. But yeah, and then some people will just sort of have like, you could have like, I don't want to, not a karaoke machine. What are, just like a little music player that like can play kind of loud, but not too loud. I also did not buy, but looked into lights. But the problem is all these things, like a lot of these things need stands. And if you don't have a stand, then like the light that I wanted to buy, I was like, well, I don't want it just sitting on the floor. So I didn't know where I would put it, but I wanted to like plug it in, and it's sort of like a disco light. Like I said, things to like set ambiance. When you go to the venue, I mean, there are plenty of people who have wedding venue checklists, and you should definitely go through them, because one of the things that is important to check is like, can the lights dim down? Can they go off without it being dangerous? Can you cut off half of them and not the other half? Stuff like that. Um, but yeah, those are the things that I would look for. And definitely another place to save money is on invitations. I won't go into that too much, but just like buy the pack from Hobby Lobby and print it out on your printer. It's cheaper. Also faster, because it was really annoying when I was like ordering from, I don't know if it was Zola I was testing, and it took them like 2 weeks to get me the sample, and I was like, that's not happening. So yeah, just print them out and send them out, and they'll be fine. And also you get to be more creative, because theirs would have just been a plain invitation if I had done it through a company. But because we were at Hobby Lobby and we were looking at the placing, we were like, it would be cool is if we like added a photo. So we added a photo of the couple at no extra charge, a color picture. We just bought color ink, and then we were able to have photos on the invitation, which was really cool. So you can get more creative, but all of these things do take time. DIY takes more time. And I wouldn't DIY too much, because like I said, at the end of it, you end up spending more generally. But on invitations, that is definitely a place to DIY, because you're paying for paper and ink. And if you already own paper and ink, or if you can just buy the invitation pack from Hobby Lobby and buy the ink, then you should be good to go. So yeah, those are definitely things that I would recommend. Stay organized. Find someone who's organized who can help you. Organization is a huge part of it if you're not kind of OCD like me. So yeah, but otherwise, I do have other wedding videos that I keep saying that I'll do, but right now with my rehearsals and my show coming up, I have like, I mean, technically I say show, like there's one, the musical, but I also have like dance performances coming up. It's a lot of shows. So I will get around to those when I can manage, honestly. But yeah, hopefully all of these tips helped. Good luck with all of your wedding planning. If you like this video, or if you have other subjects for these long chats, please let me know. Please let me know. And I will see you soon. Thank you guys so much for watching.